right, guys, this is more fun. We can have some fun on this if we want. We got an off day, so this is great. But it's been a couple weeks since I talked to you, and I tell you, it's still been strange. I went to the football game this past weekend and tried to get an idea what it's going to be like for us. I look at our practices; they've been pretty good. I mean, I think pretty spirited. We're really trying to work on. We got to bring our own emotion and enthusiasm, and so every day I'm on our guys about picking it up, showing videos of the NBA and how those millionaires were still cheerleading on the sideline. I mean, we're going to have some of that. So we're trying to put in some of the protocol that we'll need. But practices have been pretty good. We had a couple days where I didn't think guys were as into it. And I think because of everything we're going through, there's going to be a few ups and downs. But in general, pretty good. We're adhering to all the new testing rules. We started testing last week, every day, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, we're testing. That too is different. And then you have something happen like what happened at Wisconsin, and, it throws up a lot of red flags on what's going to be and what can be. But we're just asking our guys to continue to be diligent in what they're doing. And we've done some things around here to try to get them over in this building more instead of laying in their apartments. I think that's not healthy for them. So we have spent a little more time on what we can do to help mentally keep these guys upbeat and not in a laissez-faire atmosphere and situation. So we're trying to do a better job of that. The scheduling, which you're all probably dying to hear about. I was on a Zoom call this morning with the Big Ten. We still don't know. Kevin Polga, our guy here, has been working for not only the Big Ten, men's and women's, but half the country, and trying to put together these schedules, and things are changing every day. We're hoping in the next few days we're going to have it pretty much locked down, but it could be one of those schedules that's changing as we go, believe it or not, other than the conference games. We just want to do everything we can do to get a full season in. And a full season now is 27 games instead of 31. But that's not a big deal. The biggest deal is to make sure we keep everybody safe and healthy. If we've learned anything the last 8 months, we've got to stay flexible. I mean, I saw where the NBA is even talking about having a 1 month at a time schedule so they can adjust and adapt to different situations. A little harder for us when you got final exams, you got Christmas, you got different things. But I do think we've had a chance to learn from football, the positives, the negatives that they went through. And we talk twice a week as a Big Ten staff. All 14 coaches are on the Zoom call. I think it's done a lot for all of us. We've kind of brought some camaraderie together, some togetherness. We've spent the last couple of days trying to educate our players. Everybody got registered to vote, so that was a big thing. For the most part, we did get absentee ballots because we just don't want our kids interacting with a lot of people at the polls, even though I would have liked to have them out there because I think it would have been good for them. But so we've done that. And the last thing I'll talk about before I open it up is, so who's been playing good, who's not? I mean, I think we've had a really good 2 weeks out of an Aaron Henry and Joey Hauser. Those two guys, Gabe Brown has been really, those guys really good. Foster Lawyer has been really picked up his game. Rocket Watts, we're moving him a couple different positions. And then inside, we've got a lot of guys that are playing pretty equally, whether it be Bingham, whether it be Julius Marble. Madi Sissoko is coming. He's going to be a beast someday. He's coming right now. He's just trying to both learn all the language and all the references and figure out how to quit fouling. They're already starting to call him El Anaganya. So I don't go very close to him in practice, because he's wailing all over, and he's a very aggressive kid. And, Thomas Kithier has had, he might be one of the other ones that's had a great 2 weeks here in the last since practice started. So sounds like pretty positive in a lot of ways, but a lot of work to do. But I have been pleased with the focus, the attention to detail, the fact that they're trying to fight through some things, because there's some days that are, I mean, I come in myself, it's just different as you guys do in your own occupation. It's not easy. I guess you guys do spend a lot of time out of your homes, but that's not the norm for coaches, and it's definitely not the norm for college students. And that's been an adjustment, to say the least. But I'll open up some questions so that you can ask me what you want to hear about instead of the stuff I'm telling you about.
We'll start off with Kyle Austin and then go to Chris Solari.
Hey, Tom, I wanted to ask you about scheduling a little bit. I don't know how many specifics you can go into, but just with the number of games you lost with the Orlando going off the table, what are kind of your options for filling those games? Look to host an MTE or just to buy games in, or what are kind of the options you have?
Yeah, we're working with a Notre Dame. We're working with some other MTEs. There's a big question of whether, you can play in an MTE right now. The Big Ten, just because of the testing procedures and that of some of them, those are some of the question marks out there. We are trying to look at, can we schedule a few more games semi-locally, which around here would be Eastern, Western, Central, Oakland, Notre Dame, teams that are in a couple-hour radius of here, so that you can travel by bus, and both for cost reasons and for not having to fly as much. But the loss of Orlando doesn't totally affect us. I mean, looks like we're still going to play the Duke game somewhere. I'm not sure where yet. People tell me it's going to be Virginia, but there's nothing set in stone on that with the ACC Big Ten Challenge. We're hoping to get one more big game in there, home or away, and then put together a few other teams that would help finish off the 5 or 7 games. I think it depends if the Big Ten, we're at 20, but could we go to 22? I guess it's possible. So we'd either need 5 or 7 games total. I'm hoping by the middle of next week, but it seems like we've been saying this kind of like football. Patience is going to be a great virtue in this, and yet we're diligently working on it. KP, if you saw him right now, he looks worse than some of you writers. He's looking bad right now. He's been working morning, noon, and night on these schedules and different ways to schedule. We're trying to get more games in December and early January, so that in case when the students come back, if they come back here, but at most schools, mid-January, that, sometimes cases spike. We want to have some flexibility in February. So those are some of the things we're trying to do, and yet it's hard to do that around, both Christmas and final exams. It looks like right now, the big question is whether the kids will be able to go home for Christmas. And after what happened at Wisconsin, where it was just maybe a roommate or something, maybe keeping the kids here safe is some of the things we've talked about with both the players and the parents.
Next up, we'll go to Chris Solari.
Tom, a little bit more on the schedule. Has there been any talk kind of doing what football's doing and just doing a Big Ten bubble at some point? And would it be campus sites, singular locations?
We haven't talked about the bubble, Chris, so far. They did, I guess once it was mentioned, pods, can you go somewhere and have 4 teams? And it doesn't really, unless you're in a complete bubble, what I think people do is we're the same sport as the NBA, but you can't look at us like the NBA, because these players still have girlfriends, they still have friends, they still have parents, brothers and sisters. That seems to be one of the problems with football around the country after games. So there's so many different issues. But, they talked about having more conference games, like football did. But as of right now, that is just totally speculation and what they're thinking about. The NCAA has come out and said they'd like us to play some cross-reference games. In a perfect world, that'd be great. As you know, we're not in a perfect world right now. So it's been frustrating. If you think it's frustrating for you guys because you can't report to people, it's been frustrating for us. I mean, we're practicing and can't even say we're opening with so-and-so or we're doing this the first week. That's been a little challenging, to say the least. That and the fact with no exhibition games, it seems like, we're 4 weeks away from yesterday we're supposed to open. And normally you got an exhibition game in 2 weeks, another one in 3 weeks, and then you play. It breaks it up a little bit. So we're trying to find some things to do to kind of keep them motivated, but understand that nobody wants to practice for 6, 7 weeks, including the coaches, without a game.
Next up, we'll go to Rico Beard and then on to Audrey Dahlgren.
Hey, John, got a two-parter for you. One, is scheduling your games as simple as you just kind of picking up the phone and talking to whatever team is available at that time? And the second part of the question is, has there been talks to maybe, I know it's called March Madness, but maybe extending the season out to April or May?
Yeah. Are you Hondo? You got two-part questions. I just checking since he's gone. Are you the new Hondo?
I'm the new Drew.
New Drew. I love Drew. You know what? Both good questions. To answer the second one first, there has been talk, not worry when the Masters is. I mean, the NCAA tournament's big enough that we think we can go against anybody. And you probably wouldn't want it the same weekend, but could it be pushed back? There has been talk about that, not in any significant way. As far as calling teams in that, we're trying to keep some teams on the hook, but we just don't know all the rules yet. Is the Big Ten going to let you play? The 21-day sit-out period the Big Ten has been difficult. That's difficult because none of the other conferences have that. And so you got to be very careful in your scheduling and what you do. And we're trying to keep some teams. KP's got so many things going. He's juggling so many balls. But I know this, at the end of the day, someone's going to want to play us. So if we can play teams, we'll get teams to play. We just want to make sure that, if we know we're playing Duke and we know we're playing, if it is Virginia, and you get one more, now you got your anchors. You got your anchors, and then you're going to fill in, and that's kind of the way it's going to look. And as people said, I mean, it's been cut down to 27 games. As we learn in football now, Wisconsin could end up playing 6 instead of 8, if they're out for 2 weeks. Because we'll have a little more margin for error, meaning in basketball, if you had to play 3 games in 3 nights, it could be done. That couldn't be done in football. And they have no off week where we're going to have some. So I think there's some things at basketball. It's going to make it easier, better. But the scheduling thing is driving us crazy. It's driving you guys crazy. And they're working on it. But remember now, too, those poor ADs, to be honest with you, have had to put so much into getting football going. I mean, we're 1 week into football. So, and that is really important to all of us. So I'm just trying to tell our guys, hey, we're going to have to just be patient, but be diligent. Keep working on it, but be patient. I think at times we're not patient enough, and that creates more problems. So that's been the battle cry around our place. Be patient, worry about the things you can control, and the other things they'll work out. You're welcome.
Go to Audrey Dahlgren.
Steve, so I have a question in regards to the mental aspect of things because you mentioned a while ago that you were just kind of hoping to keep your your guys mentally focused throughout everything that's going on with COVID? And so what are you doing to break up that monotony and to make sure that mental health is?
Well, we're talking to them a lot about it, and what we've done, both for, kind of the voting, racial injustice, we're trying to engage our players a lot more in conversations that aren't just basketball. That's been okay. We've done some things here at the arena. We're trying to, bring in a ping pong table or get a pool, do some things. Because my biggest worry is they're laying in an apartment, just laying there, getting up in the morning, pushing on their computer, trying to take a class. At least I get to come to work, and if you were sitting in you remember back to your college days, if you're sitting in a dorm room or a small apartment and you can't never move, that's not good. That's not healthy. So we're trying to get them out a little bit more, have maybe some meetings that we can have. We've had a meeting every week with former players by Zoom, tried to do something there. We've had a couple of speakers on the social injustices and things that we've had to deal with there. We've just tried to stay involved. We've even got a book club going. I should get into that because I don't read enough. But we're trying to do some things there where they can learn financial things and different things. And so I guess, Audrey, we're trying to keep them occupied and yet give them some space to do their own thing. And it's gone pretty good. I've been pretty pleased with it so far, but it's just started. I mean, we got a long haul to go here, and hopefully we'll continue to improve things from what we do in the arena. We're talking about what we're going to do in the main arena. We're getting with our marketing people. What can we do to dress up our arena if we have no fans in the stands, especially early on? How can we give these players, especially a guy like Josh or guys that are seniors, how can we give them an experience that they'll remember? That's what the coaches are working on a lot. Not as many X's and O's now, just taking care of the Johnnies and Joes, to say the least, making sure if they're not mentally with us, they're not going to be physically with us. So I'm definitely not a psychologist, but I'm gaining a little ground in that profession and trying to figure out how to push, how to understand, how to comfort, how to prod. It's a balancing act right now. And as hard as it is, as I told you earlier, for adults to figure out how to deal with this. When you think of going to college, you go to college, and yes, you have an academic life, and yes, you have an athletic life. But I mean, it's your first time away from home. Mom's not telling you what time to be in, and dad's not telling you what to do, and now they're kind of strapped in an apartment with nowhere to go. That's difficult, and even though I'm sitting there saying, stay in, stay in, stay in, the reality of it is then I better give them something to do, because I don't want them just laying around, and I don't want them out at the sororities and fraternities. So that's been challenging.
Real quick, what was the book? What's been a popular book?
You know what? I can't remember what this week that they were. I get it on my phone. They have a meeting. David Thomas has been in charge of that. So I'll figure that out and I'll tell you, see if you like it. All right?
All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Next up, we'll go to Matt Charbonneau with Jason Lewis, followed.
I'm going to ask you a little bit more about basketball for a second, Foster in particular. I feel like we talk a lot about transfers in this day and age of guys when things don't go right. Their first move is to transfer and go somewhere else, where Foster's a guy that you could have looked at and said maybe he's a guy that transfers, yet here he is at this point. He's been named a captain. It sounds like everything's starting to kind of click for him a little bit on the court too. What does it say about him that he's the kind of guy that didn't have all this adversity on court and things didn't go exactly right, yet he's still kind of sticking it out?
Matt, that's a great question because, like a lot of players I've had, We're just in a day and age where you're supposed to be a pro after your sophomore year, you know? You're supposed to be gone. You're supposed to be starring, not trying to start. And it goes back to what I said about there's no process anymore. You know, like once in a while, you know, Doug Herner would say to me here, Doug Wojcik, you know, a little bit of the older guys, you know, this is normal. This is the way it always was. And yet we've unfortunately sped the process up so much in everything in life that players and kids don't even get to go through the normal procedure. And I'll be honest with you, you got to pull for a guy like Foster. He is playing his best basketball. He is in good shape. He's gotten stronger. He's better defensively. He probably could have transferred. And I think that it's a privilege to coach a guy that didn't just run from all the adversity. I mean, as I've made it public, I'm totally against the transfer rule that they're trying to come up with. You know, the minute you don't like something, leave. I don't understand it. I never lived my life that way. But he might be a good role model, a good mentor to see what it's like to tough it out. I mean, I'm not on Twitter, as you know, but you probably do know. I heard he took more abuse than anybody on my team on Twitter. And, you know, what I'd really like to do is see him have a great year and laugh in the face of all those people that were so ignorant, to be very blunt about it. And so I'm proud of what Foster's doing. Does that mean he's ready to make a 100-degree turn? I don't know. I just know this. He's shooting the ball. He's in here morning, noon, and night. He's shooting the ball better than ever, but he could always shoot the ball. It's the other parts of his game that have gotten better. And we do forget, too, that he played behind maybe one of the greatest point guards that ever played here in Cassius Winston. So that, too, has been a process, you know. I mean, he learned from a great player. It was hard to get a lot of minutes in playing with a guy like that. But if you look back at some of the games, when his idiot coach gave him a chance, he did a pretty good job in most of those games. So I think him being named captain by a pretty good vote of all players tells you a lot what a lot of guys think of him. And that's been pretty encouraging and a very good question, to be honest.
Real quick, one other thing. You've had teams that have had trouble with turnovers in the past. Did you give any tips to Mel after the opener on cutting down the turnovers?
Yeah, you know what I told him? Been there, done that. And you're right. You are so right, you know, that we think about Mel, and I'd like to say this about Mel. I got a chance. He invited me over to speak to his team. You get to speak to a football team the week of the Michigan game. There's no greater thing I could do except win the national championship. But I talked to Mel right after the game, and I said, you know, I listened to people talk, and, you know, it was tough for him. I talked to his wife at the game, and she's telling me how she doesn't even know all the wives of the staff. You know, he hired that staff in March, and everything went to hell days later. And, you know, he didn't have, I mean, take nothing away from Rutgers, but, you know, their coach was hired in the middle of December, you know, and had 2 extra months to really, 2.5 months to prepare. Mel was, I think our guys still have stickers on their helmets with name tags on them because poor guy didn't even know. But I told him I thought after that game, and I really mean this, not to just stick up for him, but I thought we did a damn good job in a lot of areas except turning the ball over. And, you know, when you turn it over, it's just such a bad look for the coach, for the players, and more importantly, it really doesn't give you a chance to win. And I have been in those shoes before, so I did appreciate it, and I told them. And then I used that teaching point to come back and tell my players, you want to know why we're harping on turnovers? And one of my assistant coaches put in a rule that more than 3 turnovers in the practice, we're running for everyone after that. And so, some lawyer will probably sue me for running a guy too hard. But other than that, I think it's a correct thing to do. I know this. When I went over to practice yesterday, they were talking about how to hold the ball, which they do a lot, and Courtney Hawkins was telling them, the different ways, couple different ways. And Mel's been working on that hard. I'm excited for the weekend for him. It's Michigan week. Doesn't get any better than that. But I saw more good in that than bad. But I did relate to the turnovers. And that just goes to show you that we've won a national. We won the Big Ten last year. We still had problems with turnovers. So I got to do a better job. I'm sure Mel feels he has to do a better job. And maybe we'll turn this thing into non-turnover you instead of been turnover you a little bit for us than past.
Jason Lewis from ABC and Flint.
Ben actually asked those my questions, but real quick follow-up, Ben, on that yesterday at practice. When you talked to the guys, what was your message to them about this week?
About when I talked to the football team?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, yeah. I just talked about different things I looked at when we played in big games. And the biggest thing is, I talked about my experience at Michigan. You can hate somebody so much that you don't do a good job coaching or playing. You got to respect your opponent, but yet you have to make sure that it doesn't take over and then you start making mistakes and penalties. I talked about some things with at all the days you've worked out, really you got 3 days, and you give this coaching staff 3 days of everything you have, and 3 days seems like a small number of the 35,000 days that we should live. 3 days doesn't seem like much, but 3 days is important, and just how proud I am of the program, and I think, to be honest with you, how excited I am to see them move forward. I said, yeah, you turn the damn ball over too much. There's no secrets about that, but that's correctable. And this is an opportunity, and I think the last thing I talked about was the leadership. That I really believe that football and basketball games aren't won on the field as much as they're won on the practice court, practice field, hotel, bus trip down. The leadership of a program is critical. I talked to him a little bit about Travis Walton before the Louisville game, back when we went to the Final Four in Detroit, that I thought that game was won the night before in the hotel and the morning of at the pregame meal, and Travis Walton kind of won it, not the coach. And that's what leadership's all about, and that's what's needed to win big games. And let them know, too, that I've been underdog a lot of times. Been underdog. Won my share of them. They can go win theirs.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.
Go to Larry Mays and then Jim Comparoni.
Hey, Tom, I have a book recommendation with a guarantee.
Don't be driving and reading at the same time. Are you?
I'm in the parking lot at Lions practice.
All right, you're forgiven. Go ahead. Give me that question again.
Okay, I have a guaranteed book tip for you.
Okay?
When Pride Still Matters, it's a
Ooh.
biography about your favorite coach. If you haven't read it.
Oh yeah, I've read that one. I haven't read a lot, but that's a good one. I'll make sure our players do. We have been looking at some things with all the financial problems, where we're trying to look at some life lesson things. But that's a great life lesson. So I'll suggest that to DT.
I was suggesting that for you because you're not a reader, you said, but you would love that if you've already read it. I'll move on to my question.
I'm like the guy that says I can watch the movie.
There you go. If you had to start a game tonight, what's your starting five and who's the first five off the bench?
Well, I'm going with my heart. So Stephen Izzo and Smith, Davis Smith will start at the guards. I think Steve's coming in today, in fact, for some business. But, if I started today, I'll give you the 7 guys that I think would be in that group. I think it would be Aaron Henry and Joey Hauser. kind of for sure. And then, depending on Josh Langford, where he's at, Gabe Brown has had a great camp so far. Those guys are in the mix. Rocket Watts and Foster, they're in the mix. And I'd say at center, right now, the two guys would be Bingham or Julius Marble. So those 7 guys, I don't know if I'm missing somebody, but those guys will be in the mix to be starters. And I don't know. I've switched the lineup every 2 days to try to see who plays well together. Example of something that could happen, Gabe Brown has probably shot the ball and played as well as anybody. But I think his instant offense, he might be a great Morris Peterson, a guy who can bring off the bench 4 minutes into the game. So I'm going to talk to him about that if it works out that way. But some of it depends on the health of Josh, and also, where Rocket is comfortable, whether it's at the point or the 2, things like that are going to play some. So right now, Joey and Aaron have really solidified themselves in some ways. Malik Hall has also been a guy that maybe is in that group. I mean, because I could start different lineups. I could play Hauser in different positions. So that's not a politician's answer in this political quagmire we're in right now, but it's the most honest answer I can give you.
And just to muddy the water a little bit, kick the air, possibly.
Oh, you know what? I don't have everybody in front of me. Kithier has started the last 2 days. He's been probably the most solid, meaning maybe doesn't do anything great, but doesn't make many mistakes either. And I'd say he has been one of the surprise guys, so I'm glad you brought that up. Which sounds like I got a lot of players. And you know what I think I have? A lot of players. What I think the problem is nobody's separating themselves yet. Now remember, we have 4 weeks from yesterday is when we're supposed to play our first game. So we have time on our side, and hopefully we stay injury-free, sickness-free, and let the players determine who starts and who plays. Good luck at the Lions, man. And hey, tell that coach he's doing a hell of a job, boy. We're right there.
All right. See ya.
Good, Jim Comparoni.
Hey, Tom, you've always been a big proponent. It's great to see you, by the way. You've always been a great believer in players making their biggest improvements during the off season. I'm wondering how those players did when they were out of your sight, weight training. How far behind was the team? How far were players when you finally got a hold of them?
It hurt Marcus Bingham just because he didn't gain the weight that I'd like them to gain. It hurt him some. I think it hurt Rocket a little bit because he's more that when he's in that structure, he's really good. Gabe Brown, I think got helped, and maybe Foster and probably Gabe, Foster, Joey probably had the most gain from it. I've been really impressed though with Aaron Henry. He came in the middle of summer, really cut his body fat. He's leaner, he's stronger, more athletic, way better with the basketball. So I think he made some improvements. A lot of guys made some improvements. It hurt a couple of guys. It probably hurt everybody some. I think if there's a plus, like the NBA, it gives some guys a chance to get their legs fresh. Gabe was the one guy, along with Jack Hoiberg, probably Hauser. I don't know if those guys missed a day of working out. If they were home, they were working out. If they were up here, they were working out. Gabe has been a workaholic, and I think his game is, you'll see the difference in his game and his shooting because of it.
Also, can you give an update on Joshua Langford and how he's been the last week or so since last time we spoke with you?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago when we spoke, I said he was making big progress. He didn't have a setback. He's got to figure out now when we start going 3 days a week, and then this week we went 4 days in a row, one session. I kept him out of the fourth one. That was a coach's decision, nothing wrong with him. He's shown no ill effects with his foot. once in a while knee or a quad gets sore because he's probably compensating a little bit. But I will say the last couple of practices, up until yesterday when I sat him out myself, he really had a good week. He had a good week this week. And so, it's still going to be the consistency with him and reminding myself all the time that he missed 2 full years and more or less. And everything's not going to come back. I got to remind him of that. Then I got to look in the mirror and remind myself of that. And I'll continue to do that.
We have time for a couple more. We'll go to Mr. Laurie and then Kyle Austin.
Hey, can I ask, how come most of...
You mentioned the Virginia game potentially being out there. I mean, with him and his brother, and I guess how did you kind of get into them, in particular Joey, and after he decided to leave Marquette? And what has kind of been the biggest surprise you've seen from him since you've been able to get him full go?
Well, first of all, I'm embarrassed to say that all the writers that I'm seeing on the screen look a little better than my SID right now. He's still got the hunting season look. Hunting season's not for a couple of weeks, Mex, so let's figure out a way to clean it up so that we look better than the writers. That's number one. Number two, Joey Hauser, I was shocked. I thought we were going to get him in high school. I knew it was going to be a little hard with his brother at Marquette, but I thought he loved it so much here, and his family did. And I think it really came down to Marquette was a good school. He was closer to home. He had his brother there. And when he called and they wanted to transfer, I guess I was shocked because he had a pretty good year there. But I wasn't totally shocked because I always thought his heart was here, and I mean that. That's no insult to anybody. His brother, no. Him, yes. And so, it seemed like they wanted to be together, and then it seemed like they wanted to be their own guys. And so when it worked out, Virginia and us, I think it was great. Sam was awesome. Parents have been phenomenal. They are unbelievable people. And Joey, if you ask me, has just blossomed, from even when he first came, it was hard having to sit out that year where right now I think if a guy sneezes right, he gets his year. Joey had to go through the year where he didn't play. I still think in a lot of ways, just like I believe with a lot of kids, I think it helped him grow. He's done a very good job academically. He'll be able to graduate in 3 years. He's so far ahead. I think he's really looked at his body fat. He's gotten stronger. He shoots the ball, passes the ball. He's a student of the game. He kind of got some Draymond in him like that, where he really has a great understanding for a big guy. He might be one of the best big man playing guys I've ever had, playmaking guys. He can really make some plays. His passing skills are super, but his work ethic, what I've really enjoyed this summer, the pandemic has hurt us in a lot of ways, but what it does sometimes with a team, all they've got is each other. And I think he went from a quieter guy that now he's really teammates. He really is bonded with his teammates. And I think that is maybe one of the areas he's grown the most in and is really going to help me. He's always had an incredibly high basketball IQ. He could always shoot the ball. But now I think he handles it better. I think he's stronger. I think he's better defensively. And, he doesn't care where he plays. Coach, I can play inside, I can play outside. He just doesn't care. And his teammates appreciate his unselfishness. And yet they also appreciate if they throw him the ball, it's going in more than it doesn't go in. So he's grown as a person, and I think he's grown as a teammate. And I think he's improved some of the skills that he already had. He had at Marquette. They did a good job with him there, and hopefully we can continue the growth process now.
As a quick follow, the
I do. I do. I think I sometimes like them more than maybe the guys do, although I think Joey and Sam would both like to play against each other. I think it's hard on the parents, but, then again, they've been close. They played together some. Now they'll play against each other if that game comes to fruition. But I do think it's a memory maker, and somebody's going to lose, so someone's going to be upset. Someone's going to be mad at the other one because they're both competitive. But then, Thanksgiving meal 10 years from now, with there are two kids there, they'll be lying about who won and lying about who played better, and it'll be a great conversation piece. So you're right. I always think things like that are good for the individuals sooner or later.
Last one will go to Kyle Austin.
I just want to ask a little bit about Julius, because didn't see a whole lot of playing time as a freshman, but now it looks like he's kind of right there in the mix of the center job. How is he kind of taking that big leap here in the offseason?
Julius has been, his body is great. He's more athletic than some of those guys, but he has that Spartan strength and toughness. He's a rock, man. There's nothing. He's solid. I mean, he plays hard. He's not afraid of anything. He's improved his shooting a lot. I mean, he knocked down every 15-footer now. He's pretty good around the basket. I think he's made great improvements. Defensively, he's athletic enough that we can switch more. We might be doing a lot more switching this year. And guys like him, Joey would be Malik would be reasons why. I'm really been impressed with him. And him and Malik are roommates. And I should say this about Malik. Malik has really played well lately, but he was injured a lot early. He had a bad kind of like his knee had a little, I don't know what it was. It wasn't anything surgical, but it was like a tendonitis that just kept coming back. So he missed some practice or wasn't going full in some practices. Now he seems healthy and he's coming on too. So it'd be nice if the two roomies play together some too, because they're great guys that are really good students, that are really good kids, and they're both have some toughness and great basketball bodies. No body fat. They're just solid, tough guys.